I was at an event, met Representative Sherry Roberts of the House, and she said, you need to run for office. And I said, absolutely not. I don't like politicians. I don't like politics. I think it's really dirty and nasty. And she's like, yep, that's all true, but we need people to run for office.
Welcome to this show. We are very excited today. We have Senator Jessica. I'm going to try to do this right. All right. Jessica de la Cruz. Right. Again, Jessica de la Cruz. We have Senator Jessica de la Cruz in our studio today. We are discussing everything about Rhode Island, what your main concerns are, what you're working on currently. We're going to express some of our concerns so that our listeners can get a little bit of an idea. Guys, subscribe to our channel. You know what we do. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. Before we start, Jessica, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a lifelong Rhode Islander. I've lived here forever. My parents immigrated from Portugal, and it was either here or California, I think. You know, that's like big Portuguese populations.
Oh, really? California?
Yeah, they do, yeah. But actually, no, Massachusetts. I think Massachusetts is number one per capita, then Rhode Island, and then I think California.
Wow.
So they landed in East Providence, and I lived in East Providence for almost all my life, and then moved out to North Smithfield, which is so far away in Rhode Island standards.
Yeah, for a Rhode Islander.
It really is. Whenever I visit my mom, she's like, oh, you're going to drive all the way here? I'm like, it's only 23 minutes, like literally 23 minutes.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and can't imagine myself anywhere else. I love it here.
Yep.
Met my husband here. We have 3 boys, and I became a state senator. It will be 4 years, and it's not something I ever thought I would do.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
How does one get into that?
Yeah. I was very upset with the state of affairs in Rhode Island. So it was more like hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Like I was very upset about what was happening in Rhode Island. And first it kind of started when I had my children. That's when I realized, you know, because I always voted, but I didn't place such a high importance on my local representation, like my school committee, my town councilor, city councilor, and members in the General Assembly, when they have so much more say what happens in my everyday life than, say, the president does. So there was some issues with schools. They were not really the best performing schools, so I thought I should be able to send my kids somewhere else. Found out that I couldn't. Yeah. There was no such, mechanism to send my children elsewhere unless I was going to pay for it myself. No voucher program.
When you say elsewhere, you mean like out of your town, basically?
Yeah, so I thought if my schools aren't performing well, then surely there must be some kind of voucher program where I could take some tax dollars and send them to a school that's actually performing well. And that wasn't the case. So I thought, wow, that shouldn't be that way. And then taxes so high, especially property taxes. And as a property owner, because I owned some rentals, I had put in my mind that if I ever wanted to stay home with my kids, that I needed another source of income. So multiple streams of income, and I thought real estate would be a good way to go. So that's what my husband and I did. And we weren't like real estate tycoons. We just had like a couple of properties. Yeah. And I decided I wanted to stay home. So that was going to be my full-time employment. And at that point, I decided, I'm carrying lots of cash at times. So I applied for a license to carry a concealed weapon and was denied, even though I was no criminal record, squeaky clean, stellar candidate. So found an attorney and took my case to the Rhode Island Supreme Court. And I just felt like, my constitutional rights aren't being respected. Education, we're suffering in Rhode Island. Johns Hopkins reported that Rhode Island had some of the worst schools in the nation. Yeah. In the nation. Yeah. So I was at an event, met Representative Sherry Roberts of the House, and she said, you need to run for office. And I said, absolutely not. I don't like politicians. I don't like politics. I think it's really dirty and nasty. And she's like, yep, that's all true, but we need people to run for office. And so after meeting with her a couple of times, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to run for office.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. How long between the time you made a decision to actually put it into action? How long did it take? Months.
Maybe like 2 months.
Wow. So you get right into it right away.
Yeah, feet first.
I love
right
it.
In.
That's exactly our approach here too. So I know you mentioned some of your concerns that made you run. But what are your main concerns right now before I get into some of our concerns? What are your main concerns that you're working on right now?
Well, I've introduced some legislation that's important to me. School choice is important. I really care about constitutional issues. Being a daughter of immigrants, my parents came to this country for two things, for freedom and for economic opportunity. So those things are what I want to see preserved for America, being that beacon or that lighthouse for the rest of the world. And I still talk to my family, Christmas and Thanksgiving, we're all together, and the extended family. And there's such a love for this country. And it's not a misplaced or, because some people say, how could you love a country? It's like, well, they love the opportunity and the freedom it's afforded them. So preserving that is important to me.
Totally. I can speak from that, from experience, because like I told you earlier, I'm an immigrant myself. I moved here when I was 21. And when I tell people how important it is, how important your freedom is, and the economic opportunity as well, but just the freedom itself, the fact that it's valued in this country the way it is, if you're not from here, if you were born here, you probably do appreciate it, especially if you're, if you have a background that, you were explained these things. But coming from where I came from, I mean, my country was in war and occupied when I was a kid. I literally experienced what that looks like and what it does to your culture. Like we fought. My parents were. My dad went to war, and we had to leave the country. Right, like kind of what's happening in Ukraine right now. Yeah. It was a very similar situation. So we know what it is to fight and die for freedom. Like I literally experienced that firsthand. So being here, I do know that most people, thank God, most people do appreciate it, but there are a lot of people who do not really maybe rank it as, in my opinion, the number one thing. Yeah. It doesn't, there's nothing else out there that kind of beats that. And I love that, that is really important to you. And I feel like as a state, what would you say as a state? Do we value current politic affairs in the state? Do you think we value freedom, or should we do it more?
I don't think we value it enough or respect it enough. When we were just before we got on the podcast, we were talking about the vaxxer tax bill. Yeah. That's a horrendous piece of legislation, and it flies in the face of everything that really this country was founded on. And even, I talked to people about Roger Williams, who founded Rhode Island. He was excommunicated from the Massachusetts Bay Colony because his beliefs didn't line up with theirs. And so he established Rhode Island as a haven for people who thought outside the box, who were rogues and dissenters. Yeah. And his gift to America and to the Constitution is the freedom of religion. And with the vaxxer tax bill, I'm really about philosophical exemptions. If you have a reason that you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your decision. You have to live with that decision. Sure. But I also mentioned to individuals about the smallpox. Smallpox was enacted, all of the rules and regulations, the vaccines were all done through the legislature, the way that it should be, because you elect these individuals to represent you at the State House. With COVID, it happened through executive order. Not proper at all. I mean, I was against it from the beginning. Like, these issues need to be heard by the legislature. We have representation right now. My constituents certainly weren't heard during the pandemic because I wasn't there to advocate for them at the State House because of the state of emergency. We could not meet. So I had an issue with that, but also with smallpox being deadlier than COVID, they even allowed for philosophical exemptions. Yeah. And that was much deadlier. And certainly if we could maintain freedom there, why can't we do it today in 2022 and 2020?
Exactly. Yeah, when I first saw, because just like everyone else, I get my news on Facebook, and I'm joking, but but I saw somebody shared a post about this, and I'm literally just scrolling, and I stopped for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I was like, no, this got to be a joke. Like, this can't be a real thing. So I went looking into it, and it was, and I was in shock. And we were like in talks for you to come to the podcast, and I told them, I was like, we have to talk about this, because whoever created the bill, which I don't know if you want to mention the names or not, but whoever came up with the bill, if they didn't, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but if they didn't intend it as a direct attack to freedom, maybe they didn't intend it that way, but to me, that's what it is. Like, that's what it seems like, And there's senators who signed the bill and then 2 days later came and said, "Oh, I didn't read the bill, and now I'm taking my signature out," which is great, by the way. But my immediate reaction is, okay, how many other bills did you not read?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was a freshman senator, advice that I received from Democrats and Republicans were read the bill, never sign anything without reading it, and it was great advice. And there have been instances in which senators have asked me to sign a piece of legislation. I say, can I read the legislation? And they'll say, oh no, I got to submit it right now. Okay, I won't be able to sign it, but maybe next time, if you have more time, then I can read the bill. So then there's sometimes you just flip through the bill, right? I'm guessing that they might have just flipped through the bill, thought it was okay, or
they were looking for the pictures in the bill.
There's no pictures, no pictures. Maybe we should add pictures.
We should add
But
pictures,
there were no
right?
pictures. But also, I know that it gets very hectic on the Senate floor. So sometimes people are shoving things in your face, like, "Oh, sign this. This is just to incentivize vaccines." And so they may have taken it
that way,
and said, "Oh, okay, I trust you as a colleague," but it was far from it. So
yeah, totally. All right, and then you were against that bill. And another thing that I have here, that you want to work on making voting easier, but hard to cheat.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So I think voting right now is very easy in Rhode Island. And I said on the Senate floor yesterday as we were debating this bill, I've been voting since I'm 18 years old, and it's never been difficult for me to vote. We vote every 2 years in Rhode Island. It happens on the first Tuesday in November, so we can plan ahead. The polls are open from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., and so you have ample time to get to the polls and vote. And we've had these laws in place for 50 years with bipartisan support and overwhelming Democrat support, because our state for 80 years has been ruled by Democrats. So, and it's never been an issue. And Republicans sometimes get the bad rap, like, oh, they want to suppress the vote, but that's not the case. And then I also brought up the point that, my family, they're Americans now, but they weren't, and they vote now that they're Americans, and it's very simple for them to vote as well. So, of course, we want it to be easily accessible voting, but we certainly don't want to undermine the integrity of our voting system.
Absolutely. And why? So, what's the argument for that? Why is it difficult right now? Why does it need to be easier?
I don't think that it is difficult right now. I've never received one complaint about the difficulty of voting.
Yeah. Same, right? I mean, I have an idea. We could all submit our emails to you guys and then just send us a calendar invite, I guess. I don't know how much easier. Like you said, it's a Tuesday. Block out 30 minutes and just go vote and get it done.
Go on your lunch break. Go before work. Go after work.
Yeah.
I mean.
Totally. All right. So another interesting thing that you are currently involved with is the pleasure-based sex education that is being discussed today.
I am not involved in that.
Well, not in that way.
I know what you mean.
Totally.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Not in that way. But you said legislators, and correct me if I'm wrong, just like you did, legislators should be focusing on improving English and math scores.
Right.
Right? Tell us more about that.
So I'm a member of the Senate Oversight Committee, and we've been hearing a lot of testimony and having hearings surrounding specifically the Providence Public Schools District. Now, it's not just Providence Public Schools, but they have their scores are the worst in the state, and some of them are in the single digits. One in particular, I saw that it was 8th grade students had 5 proficiency in math and reading. And when we're talking about 5% proficiency, I've spoken to business owners who have said, these young people graduate from high school, cannot fill out simple paperwork, and can't read the paperwork. And then I think to myself, how are these people going to be gainfully employed in the future? How are they going to be able to provide for themselves or even a family? We're not setting them up for success. We're setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
And why are we focusing on teaching kids or introducing pleasure-based sex ed. Now, I'm not against teaching sex ed. Of course, we want kids to know, biology, male, female, what are the bodily functions. That's fine, age appropriate. But we don't need to be introducing pleasure-based sex ed. I mean, my question for the sponsor is, are you teaching kids to pleasure themselves? Are you teaching them to pleasure their partners? Like, what is pleasure-based sex ed? We still haven't gotten an answer. No one can answer that question.
And between what ages is this trying to be?
Starting at 6th grade. So I have a child in middle school, and it's not appropriate. I mean,
it's not.
When all of my kids, we have age-appropriate discussions on what is sex, your body, how does it work, biology, but the schools should not be delving into this. Again, those conversations are for parents to have with their children, because parents know their children best, where they are developmentally, if they're prepared for certain conversations. The school should have no say in that whatsoever.
I agree. And by the way, thank you for being involved in that, because I found out about this a couple of days ago, and you're right. I mean, maybe we worry about this once we learn how to read and do basic math, but you know what I mean? Like, but I definitely think it's important that as a state we focus on the real issues. Unfortunately, the world is going to ask you first, do you know how to read and do math? And then maybe no, nobody will ever ask you that. Why would anyone ever ask you that, right? But it shows why we are, you said, one of the worst in the country when it comes to education.
Yeah.
And we get this question a lot, right? Because we have a lot of people who reach out to us from all over the country who are moving here. And one of the main questions is education, right?
Yeah.
It's young families who are looking to move here for whatever reason, either employment or they have family, they're moving back to Rhode Island, and they're always asking us about education. It's really not difficult to go out there and find out that we don't have the best education system. And I do think that spending some time in there, I really think like that's probably one of the most important things that we should work on.
It's our future. These are our leaders. They're going to be our business owners, our senators, our reps. So we need to set them up for success. And those young people in 8th grade that don't have math and reading proficiencies, what are we doing to ourselves as a state? So I think our priorities are mixed up, and people say, well, you can focus on more than one priority at a time. I was like, this is not a priority.
That's exactly.
Making Rhode Island business friendlier, improving our schools. I mean, we could work on so many more issues, right?
So that was going to be my next point. Because this is one of the other things that people ask all the time: employment. They like the state. We promote Providence. We promote Rhode Island. Let's get real, right? It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
I mean, right now is the best time, in my opinion. Maybe Portugal is better, right? But we have, we have so many beaches, so much to do. It's never ending, right? But we're not a business friendly state. We're mostly sustained by very small business, right? But we don't have, and I'm not saying that I'm pro or not, but we don't have bigger corporations moving here. We're not doing anything in that direction. So can you speak more on that and what your thoughts are?
Yeah, it made a lot of sense when someone explained it to me, because I said, Rhode Island is perfectly placed between New York and Boston. We should be busting at the seams with business, with companies wanting to come to Rhode Island. We've got beautiful beaches. I mean, there's no reason to move to Rhode Island. But it goes back to the schools.
You mean to say to not
to move to Rhode Island?
Not to move, yeah.
But if there's a large company want to move here, bring their employees here, and employ people here in this state, if people aren't going to be excited about sending their kids to school here, right? We have to have infrastructure in place to have these families move, and even move from other states to come here. They're going to look at the education. They're going to look at the housing prices. To build a home in Rhode Island is extremely expensive. Obviously, building materials have increased, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through to build homes. And certainly we want safe homes, but can we remove some of the more erroneous regulations? I think we could. We talk about a housing crisis in Rhode Island. well, how about making it easier to build in Rhode Island instead of having all these fees, regulations, and hoops to jump through? So I think until we fix some of those issues.
Totally. Why is it not easy to build in Rhode Island?
There are a lot of fees, a lot of regulations. And again, when I say there are a lot of regulations, I'm not talking about I want to make sure it's a sound structure.
Totally, yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about cutting corners, but it's very difficult to build in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
It is. And
yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but one of my jobs is I check the MLS every morning to look for active listings, right? I think right now we're at 610 single family homes in the state.
Wow.
Do you know how many we need to be a balanced, healthy real estate market needs 6 months of inventory, right? Do you know how many homes we need to be a balanced, healthy market?
I don't know, 3,000?
Close to 6,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's how far we are.
My goodness.
You know, and obviously new construction is one of the main problems because most homes that are being sold are built in 1930 to 1960, even late 1800s, right? So there's not a lot of people are building homes because it is very difficult to build here.
It is.
So I do agree that that's you're so right when it comes, because you were saying it earlier about the business being business friendly and how you need the infrastructure, and you really do. You need the education, you need the new construction homes. I mean, when you go to I was just recently in Denver, Colorado, and we had to go outside the city, and they have a housing crisis too, but you could see all of these developments everywhere going on, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, why do we not have that here? You know, it's not that I honestly don't get it. And I feel like if we tweaked a couple of things, we could boom at a record rate very fast if we just really tried, I guess.
Yeah. And, you know, the other thing that I keep thinking of, and this may be controversial, but, you know, I know there are a lot of people who don't want to build in Providence. And I'm thinking, Providence is a city. You build skyscrapers in cities. That just makes the most sense. You're not going to take, you know, Fane Tower and put it in Burrillville, where I live. That doesn't make sense. You build city structures in cities.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there's that, they call them NIMBYism, not in my backyard kind of approach when it comes to building. So
yeah, I have I've honestly I've been thinking about it, and I'm just working on maybe I'll reach out to you when I have more data on this. But California, which is really not a great example, but they are doing some rezoning where they're going to allow for they're trying to have, I forget the number, but it's a dramatic number of new construction homes that are going to be built, and they're just rezoning their cities and rezoning their towns. And I do know that we could do something similar here too, right? Especially in Providence, there's a lot of multi-family properties or single family that you could add another unit on top, right? And they do that a lot in Seattle, a lot of the cities, and things like that could give us a lot of solutions. Yeah. Right. So
building an in-law apartment.
Yeah.
Somewhere for a family member to move in. You know.
Make it easy.
Yeah.
Make it easy, right? Do you? I got one more thing. The gas tax relief bill.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, you know, I wasn't seeing anybody introduce any legislation in regarding tax relief, and we have a surplus of $618 million, which means we overtaxed Rhode Islanders, and we need to give some of it back. And I don't think that we yes.
What was it?
618
million.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know, maybe the gas tax isn't the best idea in the world because people say, "Well, that's just such a small little tax relief." I was like, "It's small, but it matters because when I'm filling up my tank at least once a week, because I've got 3 boys, so I'm driving all over, taking them to places that they need to be, and I'm thinking gas is so expensive." And when I lived in East Providence, I would always go to Seekonk and fill up because although it was just like maybe 10 cents or 15 cents.
Make a difference.
It makes a difference. Then I'm already there. So I'm doing my grocery shopping there. I'm picking up my necessities for the week, like the shampoo or whatever it is that I need. And I'm spending time and my money in another state. Mm-hmm. So why can't we, being such a small state, give the incentive to people who live in Massachusetts and Connecticut get to come to Rhode Island,
Yeah.
fill up their tank here, and then buy their coffee or their groceries or pick up some clothes, at the store. I just think it's a win-win not only for Rhode Islanders but for small businesses as well.
So where is this plan right now? What's the status?
The status of the plan is it hasn't been heard yet in Senate Finance, and it needs first a hearing. Democrats on the House side have picked up the legislation, so it's a mirroring piece of legislation. It's identical. I don't believe they've had their hearing yet. It would have to pass both chambers, and then the governor would it would be in the budget, and either he would sign the budget or veto the budget. But I don't see him vetoing a budget. So really, he doesn't have enough. Even if he did veto, like, for example, there were 2 bills that he vetoed last session. Once we came back to session, we had a vote and overturned his veto because there were enough senators to overturn it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. One more question. I'm sure you are aware we actually did a small video about the Superman building in Providence.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because I've heard a lot of conflicting thoughts on that. Personally, I just got excited. I'm like, more housing. That's all I thought about. Yeah, maybe not a lot. It's not going to be a lot of affordable housing, but I think for downtown, to have 250 families move there, it just goes to everything you're saying, which is more opportunity. The coffee shop, the restaurant is going to have more clients, more customers, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So I am a sucker for old real estate. All my houses have been really old houses, but I love,
modern.
I love to keep the old buildings, just at the skyline. It's Rhode Island. It's like the Superman building. What I don't love is that each of these units are going to come to about $700,000 per unit, and I think that in my community is a grand house. It's going to have everything I could want, all the extras. So if it's affordable housing, $700,000 doesn't make sense per unit. That's not affordable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to keep the building. I don't want to see it torn down. So I don't know what the answer is, and I hate when politicians tell you that they know the answer and they're just blowing smoke.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
So here's what I think, and from what I know, right? The builder, they asked him because they've been trying to do this for a while now, right? And they asked them, why is it happening, and why are because people first were not happy because how much is the state? Do you know how much the state is contributing to it? I think it's about $45 million.
They are contributing, but I didn't know.
That's fine.
I really don't know.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it. So so the state is, and then people were not happy that the state was doing it. So basically, the builder, which was a really good point, right? He said, to me as a builder, it doesn't make sense to do it here. To turn this building here when I can go and build one in Boston, because the cost of construction is identical. Wow. But when it comes to, so the cost of construction is identical, but when it comes to resale value or rent or rent values, let's say they wanted to keep them and just rent them, rents in Rhode Island are obviously lower than in Boston. So that's why they've been fighting for so long, because they needed the state to come in and help to be able to make this possible, because basically they were saying that they're going to lose money if the state does not get involved. So to me, I mean, first off, we have $600 million just sitting there. Why not do this right away, in my opinion? And yes, I agree, $700,000 is not the average price point in Providence is, I think it's about $380,000. So these are definitely going to be luxury condos, but I think overall it's going to help downtown.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. Overall, I think it's going to help downtown. And they said that 20 or 25% of those are going to be under affordable housing.
Yes.
So we don't know exactly what that means yet, but we'll find out.
Yeah. So affordable housing is, so if I understand correctly, is if I buy a home under the affordable housing, then I can only, if I buy it, say that that's a condo and I purchase it, I'd only be able to sell it in the future, but at a certain dollar amount based on inflation. So I couldn't sell it at a profit because the next person that would buy it, it would still be affordable housing. So it'd have to be affordable for the next person.
Got it.
But that's a good way to explain it.
I get it. But you would also buy it at a discounted price, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like it. I think that's a good idea. Do you, you know what? I wanted to ask you one more thing, actually. one thing that we do hate and we're passionate about is the roads in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
How about that Centerville Road when you come down to the office?
Terrible.
My car, I'm going to have to trade my car because I'm worried it's going to fall apart. What do you think about the roads in Rhode Island? Why are they so bad? Do you know that we have the worst roads in the state, by the way? I mean, in the country?
In the country?
Yeah.
And the worst schools? And the worst business climate?
Yes.
I mean,
correct.
like, we're number one.
We're killing it. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to sound so down on Rhode Island because I
No.
love Rhode Island and it has so much potential, which is why I really believe in Rhode Island. But I drive on 146, and if you ever want to drive up to North Smithfield, you will probably, if you're alone, swear in your car because the roads are so bad. At one point, I was driving to the State House and got 2 flat tires on my passenger side. The roads are that bad.
Yeah.
And I had to have my car towed away, and it cost me like $700 to have it to have it repaired.
Yeah.
The good news is we have an influx of federal cash coming, and those roads towards projects are getting they're getting bumped up. So we're not going to have to wait as long for them. But 146 was already in the hopper. So I don't understand because when I look at New Hampshire, they have 1.3 million people. We have 1 million. Our state is smaller. Theirs is larger. They have the same kind of climate that we do. They probably have a little more snow, but their roads are great.
They're great.
So why can't we do it in Rhode Island? It's a mystery to me.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be hiring those, contractors that do their roads and maybe hire them to do.
And also,
Rhode Island.
don't take 4 years to do to do one road. Like do it faster, right?
Yeah.
It almost feels like
true.
they start the project here. When they're done, they got to restart because the road is already. You know. It's funny you said that it cost you $700 to replace your tires because on that report, when it came out that we have the worst roads, it also said that the average Rhode Islander spends slightly over $800 a year on car repairs caused by the bad roads.
Yeah. So those are just my tires. Never mind like the ball bearings or the struts and the whatever it is.
I'm hearing something funny
Speaking.
in my right tire. I know something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I just got to figure out a different route to go home because I can't take that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to add? I think we covered a good amount.
No, I think you covered a lot of topics in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much for coming over. I really had a great time talking to you. I love how informed you are, and I love how blunt and honest you are about our truths. I love that you're passionate about the state. And subscribe to our channel. And if you guys like this video, if you want us to do more of these kinds of videos, we would love to. I honestly enjoy this more than just talking about whatever every day. So subscribe to our channel. If you guys have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Bye.